Okay, welcome. It is March 6th, 2023, the first Monday after the weekend, and it was kind of an interesting day. So let's start with the daily. Daily, okay, let's zoom in here. So this was Friday. We closed just shy of 112.30, and we had in the Globex session, we had a little bit of a gap down, and it found support at 275. So pretty close to here, right along in this line, just a little bit above. So maybe a little bit of front running, but we found support there in, I'd say, the first 45 minutes of Globex. And then from there on, overnight, we grinded higher. Okay. So what I find interesting is we have fib retracement here between the 0.5 and the 0.618. In that orientation, or if you go from the most recent high to the most recent low, very close to the 618, right? So we're about 30 points shy, which makes a lot of sense. I was initially thinking we would reject around 390, risking versus this little peak here, but we had a nice grind overall. Okay, so why is this important? We reclaimed this level here on Friday, and then we tested it, and it held, and then we grinded higher. We did have some nasty selling into the end of the day, but there is the Fed chairman speaking tomorrow at 10, so maybe a little bit of risk off after that really nice move. Okay, so let's look at start with Globex. Let's go to the 5. Okay, so this is the little gap down that we had right at 330. Basically, people are thinking short versus these highs into the open at Globex. They got short, and then it found support in 275. These levels were already here. Basically, it's retesting this. I kind of thought it would maybe hold above this. So if you filled near there, you would have been okay as well, risking about 12 points. It came down, tested, and then if we zoom into the 1 minute, you can kind of see how it played out here. Okay, here's Sunday. Perfect. So basically, came down, lower highs, found support, higher low, and then this made this here made a higher high than that, and then it was basically rally from there on in, right? Any retracements were risked versus another low, right? So just because it broke trend on a 1 minute chart doesn't mean the trend is actually broken. Until this little low is broke and we come up again and it's kind of confirmed, it's still okay, right? So it's just risk. Anyone, it comes down and makes this kind of bottoming pattern. People are risking fixed amounts in here probably, most likely. And then on the most recent lows, they saw buyers are active near 275, and they're buying the dips, risking versus the previous lows, right? So depending on your risk tolerance, that's okay. And then basically 320 kind of became key because this was the opening candle, and it initially, we got the test right here. Oops, sorry, I didn't click it properly. So we got the test there, sell, but again, it failed to break down because we got the lower high versus this. This low should have been lower than this, and then ideally would have come down, broke this low, and sold off. But basically this low here negated this, and then once it made the higher high, all the stops are above there. Got a really big squeeze, right? Because anyone from Friday, they're seeing this price action. Maybe they shorted into the close. Their stops were initially over here at the open. Maybe they took some profit in here, and then now it was above the most recent highs. Because if we're going to sell off, it's most likely not going to test again, especially not so quickly, right? So their stops are going to be just above, and then it triggers that, and buyers step in also to play the breakout, right? So it kind of is the perfect like ascending wedge, basically, right? You kind of got this uptrend. This would be a failed breakdown, reclaims, and then just constant higher lows, right? We kind of reach a little bit of a flat top here, right? You can kind of feel the breakout in this. If you're watching the tape, that's kind of key. You'll start seeing bids step up, and then you get that pop, right? And that pop was the biggest for the night, basically near 380. I was kind of thinking 390, maybe 405, but and then it sold off, and it couldn't really gain traction till after London and into the pre-market, right? So London was using the 350 as resistance. This is the London open in here. Sold, basically back down into that 320-ish area. Found buyers, stepped it up, retested the 350, and then it kind of sold off, and price action was kind of all over the place. Nothing really, really nice until about pre-market, when we kind of cleared this downtrend here. So we have this kind of, got this kind of trend here, right? So basically, on the lows, sellers are trailing their positions, keeping the stops above the most recent prominent highs. It comes down here, and then they start seeing the higher low. They start to cover some, and then as it's coming back up towards here, they're taking their little bit of profits. Buyers are buying the kind of breakout, and then you get that pop, right? And then we're sitting above the 350 level into the open. And let's go just to the RTH chart, which I think is always nice and clear. Okay. So we had a little bit of indecision here in the open, right? Opening slightly above 350. So people are buying dips, but failing to really clear the pre-market highs. So you get that little test there, sell very close to 350, pushes back up, gives the lower high, and then it comes down and actually makes the lower low. So this is kind of key. Is I was expecting gap fill right here, break of this, fill the gap, come up, reclaim, and then grind higher is kind of what I was looking for. I kind of thought we'd fill the gap based on the lower high, but it found support, and it's a low risk long, right? Like if you're getting long in here, you can risk just versus that little low. Maybe you're risking 10 points, and then you're looking for that level to level move. I actually got long in here at the open. I took a couple points here, about 30 points. And then I was a little late. I was thinking to long here, kind of based on this price action here, dip. I'm thinking failed breakdown, and 360 is actually the important level over 350. But I missed the fill just slightly, and then I marketed in here as we were breaking this kind of small downtrend you can kind of see here. So again, lower highs to this, higher lows to this, higher lows, and then we get the break of this high, stops are above this high, pushes this up, and it's basically a little squeeze. At first I was thinking failed breakdown at the 405, and I sold my position into 405. I did try and rebuy it after, but missed the fill, and then it kind of went without me. But I was kind of expecting this, but the execution was not the best. And it's tough too when you have one. I only play with one contract like 90% of the time, sometimes two full-size contracts. So I usually will sell into the level anyways. But realistically, could have put my stop below the recent low after this initial rejection, which was about 15 points in 1 minute. So not bad. Came down, and then notice how each candle is slightly higher almost, or very flat to the previous one. Sellers are trying to push it down, buyers are stepping it up, and then the seller's stop is just above that recent high, and then as soon as it pushes up, those guys turn into buyers as well. And then we kind of got a little bit of a push here. So 460 was important, as you can see, after we kind of go top for the day. I didn't have anything really at 485, but any 80-ish, 85 level is usually worth noting. Very close to 500. And there is a downtrend line on the hourly. If you look at it, kind of like this, we have this. So it didn't actually test, but it came very close, right? So you can kind of use that to make your bias. Like, we're kind of getting to the point where the risk reward for longs is no longer favorable, and start looking for short opportunities, right? So I shorted initially into the 460, thinking maybe we'd get 460 and then big rejection. But it had a lot of momentum, consolidated underneath, popped up above, and then once it failed again, it made the lower low to this. Failed to break down a couple times. It kept trying. I kind of was thinking maybe we'd have one more push and test this, but we did not. And then it stayed under the 460. So if you did short the 460 after the failure, you did catch the rollover. And if you look at it like this, from the high to the low, it never reclaimed the 618, right? So just shortly above, and then you got that rollover, right? So if you're getting short in here, it's kind of hard because you got to basically risk versus this high, right? Because it can very easily come up into here, right? Kind of make a little head and shoulders type pattern and then roll. So that's what lots of times, if I'm seeing something like this where it can't get over the 460, either I want to short and I want to risk the fixed points, like usually I risk 12 to 15, or you want to wait to see this, basically, right? So what this is showing us is, we got the 460 retest. It came down and made a low. It came up and actually tested 460 again. So it's showing buyers have strength, right? And it made a slightly higher high. Like if sellers were really in control, likely it would only come up to maybe here and then roll over. But it came up a little higher, came up, made the higher low, right? So it's kind of using this price action here to make the higher low, and then it's pushing above again. But we're in lunch hour and it just doesn't have the volume. The volume's kind of low in this consolidation. And then it rolls over, right? So if buyers are really strong, it's going to hold above that 460 after it's reclaimed. And so it's buyers that are buying in these little dips, or buyers that are holding some position from earlier, they don't like to see that. And then once this low does break, it kind of lets go, right? So we kind of get that cascade effect. And then again, a little bit of consolidation, no reclaims of the 405 level. Makes the next leg down, a little bit of consolidation, and then it finally comes in and fills that gap, right? So once you're getting close down to these levels, they're definitely buyable, but you just kind of got to keep your wits about you, right? Because it's very easy for it to come down and just fill that gap that we have in here, right? So something like this. And it struggled, like it was very slow into the afternoon. So buyers are still present, but sellers just had a little bit of edge, and it just couldn't really make any higher highs, anything major, right? So kind of interesting. This is kind of bearish to me as you get that push in the morning and then selling in the afternoon. And basically I think ETH VWAP is somewhere in here. But if you take like RTH VWAP from the open candle, broke VWAP. If buyers were really present, we should have saw some activity at RTH VWAP, but there was almost nothing and it went right through, right? So in those kind of cases, I'm not too interested in buying until somewhere down here, right? You could try buying the gap fill, or you could try here, depending on what you're looking for, right? Comes down. You buy the 350s, you have no confirmation. It comes down, it makes the higher high. It should come back and you should see buyers kind of present in here and make the higher low. and then right away you want to see the higher high. So it did come down, it did make a higher low, but we failed to make a higher high. So what happens? Anyone that longed in there, they bail, and then you get a little bit of a sell program. But it wasn't really strong. Like I was expecting the 350 break here, and then pretty much a quick move down to 320, but they kept getting popped up. So buyers were present, probably looking for failed breakdowns, but we just never really got that. Okay. So yeah, that's pretty much the session. Little bit of interesting action up here. Little bit of interesting action in the morning, but after the interesting action in the morning, nice trend. And then again, after we finally kind of had the distribution in this area, right? Kind of sellers are distributing their positions, longs are distributing their positions. I guess sellers would be accumulating their positions, sorry, and buyers would be distributing their positions. So sellers are looking for the leg down, buyers are taking profits into strength, and then we get the rollover and into there. So we have a speaker tomorrow, the chairman, at 10. So I'm kind of expecting overall a Globex session that is pretty calm, maybe some risk off into London, and then I would imagine some short covering into the open is kind of what I'm looking for. You know, we're up. Let's go to the 30-minute here. And let's just turn the levels off for a second. We'll put the Globex. Right, so we have quite a few points off the lows, right? So we had that reclaim here of the 925, which is a big level in the monthly. We reclaimed that, and it's been pretty much vertical short squeeze, you know, because we were clearing these highs, breaking this downtrend channel. And then now what's important here is for Globex to hold these lows overnight, the 295s. Yeah, basically to hold these lows and come up, but could easily see a test of 375 and then selling, right? If they don't reclaim 375, likely we're going to see selling back down. And we don't want 275 to break, because we'll probably come at least to 175 if that happens. Okay. So again, any of this price action, you can't predict what it's going to do. All you can do is make a thesis and react, right? Like, so in here in the morning, you know, you see this kind of pattern where it's consolidating. Dips are like, sells are aggressive up at the top, right? Because the risk is good for the sellers up there. But then you see buyers stepping in, right? Lots of wicks down here. And it didn't just fully roll through this previous low, which would normally happen if sellers are very present. You know, it consolidates a little bit and then steps back up, which you would not see usually on a breakdown like this. You'd see kind of come break the low and then just sell. And then maybe see buyers step up, reclaim, and up higher, right? So like, you know, you see this low, maybe you missed long in the low at the 350 level. You know, you see this, okay, I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to try a long position. So, you know, maybe like this, I'm going to risk 12 points versus that low, and I'm going to look for up here somewhere maybe, right? So your risk reward is really good, even if you're only looking for here, right? And you're buying into these lows. If you're filling 360, you're risking 12 points for a potential 46. That's a good trade. That's a trade you want to take all day, right? You got the risk to reward in your favor, about 4-to-1 ratio. Nothing wrong with that, okay? And then even same perspective from the sell side, right? You know, say you're thinking, okay, maybe we're going to get that rollover and get that gap fill. You know, this high is established, right? Maybe you have something like this. You want to risk just above that high, you know, give it a few more points just in case, you know, there's that level above, right? Maybe you're just targeting that low. You know, again, an easy 3-to-1 risk reward. You know, if you win at like 30 to 25%, you'll be a profitable trader if those are the kind of trades that you're taking. So very key, right? No, anyone that says they know exactly what's going to happen, they're liars, right? Don't ever believe any of those guys. All you can do is manage your risk and have something to risk first, right? If you have some statistics or data collection, like I find my levels, they usually, if they're going to work, they're not going to have more than 15 points drawdown, usually even 12. That's something I have in my head. So if I'm buying those levels and I'm just risking a fixed amount, I know the probabilities for me, there's like a 58% chance or something that those levels will be a successful to level move, right? So that's something I want to be a part of, right? So even if I say I shorted this 460, and I'm waiting to see what may happen, and then I see this pop up and then it rolls back over. So I know sellers are now present, right? And I want to fill in there, say I want to risk, say I'm getting short into here, template 40 points. Maybe I'm thinking we come back to retest the open. Maybe I know I need to risk at least up into there, right? So it's quite a bit of points of risk. It's 30 points of risk, but it has 100 points of reward, right? So I'm still in a nice 3-to-1 risk reward, and I can just size down my position, right? So maybe I'm used to taking one contract with a 15 point stop loss. I'll take 5 micros, risking 30 points. And it's the same kind of trade. It's just I'm going to be less active in this. I'm just waiting to see, right? If it's going to work, if it works, and my trade works out, I'm happy. If I get stopped, it's part of my risk tolerance, and that's okay. Okay, so anyways, that's it for me tonight. I hope you guys have a good evening, and I will see you tomorrow.